Welcome back to Dr. Supercoach. You're on once again with Cheezo. And this video we're going to be going through my pre-season team of late January coming up. But first things first, I get that I've just moved, but this studio needs a proper makeover. So let's get into it. That's where we're at right now. This is going to be like a charging drawer, so I'm going to drill some holes in the back of that little board there, so I can just have like phone chargers and earbud chargers and whatnot sitting in there. Nice clean setup. This video is sponsored by the Dr. Supercoach merch store. If you do want to grab yourself some epic threads, drsupercoach.com.au, check it out. Welcome back to Dr. Supercoach. You're on once again with Cheezo. As we said at the top of the episode, we're getting straight into my pre-season team at the end of January. Let's jump straight into the PC. Okay, so as you can see, completely blank template. This year, I'm going to be starting D1 with Tom Stewart. I like Stewart for the fact that of the 4 or 5 guys I think can end up as the highest scorer at the end of 2023, he's got the fact that he's in that bye with just the Cats and the Suns as well, which is not exactly important this year, but it's something that I'm not going to be picking many of these sort of Cats and Suns players as we go along. So I think that it's just something to kind of keep in mind straight off the top. I also think that he's probably got the best value of the remaining premiums there. We saw what Sam Docherty could do at the end of the year when he was getting that midfield time. Supposedly training with the midfielders again to start this pre-season, so that's one to watch. And I absolutely love Docherty. It took me to the top 10 a few years ago as well, and I picked him based on value at that point, so that's something to look at. Dawson, there's been a few questions about if he's off half-back or whether he's playing wing or midfield and stuff like that. I think he's still going to stay across that half-back role that he played at the end of the back end of 2022, where we saw that basically around the buys and just back from there the next month or so, where he was just absolutely fantastic. I think he's going to do that. Sicily's just going to do Sicily things. He's going to be pretty self-sufficient at that point as well. The reason I'm picking Tom Stewart because I think he's a little bit underpriced as well. I think of all those guys, he's the one that I'm most confident in. There's 1 or 2 points extra this year. And something that I didn't really take into account as much as what I thought I could have in 2022, one of my lessons learned, was not taking enough value. I played it too much kind of guns and rookies, too safe, too prior 2021 Supercoach, where we weren't getting that AFL fantasy model in, which we're tipping towards that point this season and going forward as well with the amount of trades. 36 this year, an extra round as well. All those trade boosts. So Tom Stewart's in for D1 for me. And next, this is where the value starts coming in. We've got Christian Salim, as JB would say. Christian Salem. He's a pretty consistent kind of high 80s, low 90s Supercoach player. And as I'm talking about, we are trying to take those value picks. And yes, there's a lot of value that we can find across the entire ground. He's the one that has probably, I can't even think off the top of my head, 8 or 9 seasons in the AFL at this point, and we really only need him to do what he's done in the past to make 100k, use those trades and trade boosts to kind of flip him to one of those early premiums, get an early upgrade going, and that the points per dollar spent, I think, is going to be extremely important. Again, sticking with the... I knew I said I wasn't going to have many cats. Jackie Bowes in at D3 for me at this stage. I think Bowes has been a good acquisition by the Cats. Everyone's saying, he's going to play inside midfield because Joel Selwood's retired. I don't think that's necessarily the case. He's shown over the course of his career he can play halfback as well as play inside midfield. I think the Cats have a lot of guys that are going to want to go through the midfield, so it's not as simple as just saying, let's lock Jack Bowes in there. But at 278k, I think he presents good value, and I think this season he is going to get the opportunity that he's probably been starved for the last maybe 12 or 18 months, including injury. The next player we're putting in there at D4 is Nick Caulfield. We're getting into the rookies. You'll notice a trend, particularly in my defense this year, with the slightly elevated price. I think we've talked about in our preseason podcasts, we are a little bit worried about that ongoing sub risk. And yes, we might find, the Wilmots for the Lions that are like 123k. But if you're getting those first year players or players that don't have a whole amount of games under their belt, 123, 124k players, massive sub risk. So not to say that Caulfield isn't, but because he's got a few years in the leagues, he's been in the system for a little bit longer. You've got like Philippou that's coming in that might be a sub risk in his first season for the Saints as well. So Caulfield, if he's best 22 as well, because there's been as highly touted as he was, and I think he was mid first round pick or something off the top of my head, or thereabouts. Probably one that has not fulfilled the potential from where he was taken in the draft. So I think this year is going to be something like that. Speaking of taking someone higher in the draft that has got plenty of potential, we've got the GOAT, Joshy Goda. Mooted to get some wing time running around for North this year. We know that they want to expose that young talent to kind of develop that team going into 2023. He is a little bit elevated in price again, 193k. That is something that, again, I'm looking for these types of players that I can be comfortable playing on field. He's got great raps on the kid. And if he does get that role that we're really hoping that he will, maybe he gets a little bit of time across half forward, something like that as well. He's potentially someone that we can be having playing on ground. And the next one is pretty straightforward. We don't even know if he's actually best 22 yet. But we know what he's done in the past, and that's Connor McKenna. Highly owned for a specific reason. He's a name that we've had play AFL football, and you're getting someone that, even if he averages 60s at that price of 167k, he's going to be well worth it. There's a little bit of curiosity coming into that Brisbane Lions side, which is now going for a flag. They're really in the hunt. They've picked up Dunkley. They've picked up a few other bits and pieces. Is he going to get one of those flanks and get some consistent game time? Is he going to be fringe best 22? Again, we're not sure. So he's sitting there for the time being. And Jinby for the Eagles is my next one. Again, elevated price on the bench for the time being, and I'll explain that a little further as we get into... I'll explain it now. What I like to do is I like to have my a little bit of cash stored up on the bench in terms of like my first rookie. It gives me a little bit of flexibility that say... Bowes is injured and I need to go up and get Yo, who's 315 or 20 thereabouts. Suddenly I can get Jimby down to a Weddle or something like that. There's an extra 40k. I can pull a few bits and pieces off the bench like that and enable me to go up to someone. If I've got, you see these teams that people are revealing, they've got 123k, 102k, all the way down the bench. I think in this preseason, without having to restructure about 5 different guys to kind of sub one in, that's something that I like to do. Jimby's definitely in the mid-rotations for the Eagles. I really think he's a really strong chance to be playing round 1, and he's going to be playing a really friendly role, and having that mid-defense DPP as well is fantastic. To finish off the defense, we've got Darcy Wilmot. Got some games towards the end of the year. Again, another highly owned rookie. I think we're going to have a lot of value, a lot of rookies that are playing in defense. That's the way it's kind of presenting so far this year, maybe less so in the forward line. And so Wilmot at D8, we've got shadows of previous seasons having him there, but I think he is another guy that's going to be right on the borderline for the Lions. He's been there and thereabouts the last couple of years, and he's certainly one that at D8 I think is pretty safe for the time being. And remember, a lot of these players are just placeholders going into the preseason until we see some exposed form and kind of get a real understanding of who's going to be going in to start the season. That's when these things kind of get on it. It's the end of January, okay? Easy on me. We're going to move into the midfield, and this is going to cause a little upset, I think, because as I'm talking about that value, we've got to make sure that we're getting... we're not overspending on the players that are just going to do what they've done every year. We're going towards that method of kind of high turnover, momentum trading type things where we're looking to chase momentum within these players. The Rory Lairds and the Olivers, they probably go around the same mark this year, but I'm looking for value. I'm trying to get as much value into this team as I can. Maybe I've gone too far once we see the end of the 22 on field, and we'll work back from there. But to start the season, Bontempelli and McRae, M1, M2. McRae had a bit of a down year last year, got played out of the centre square. Dunk's got a little bit more time, but not too much. Bailey Smith went in there. I think this season he's going to go back to maybe not his heights of when he was pushing 130 in the high 120s, but I definitely think 115k shows value for Jack McRae. Yes, there's arguments that he's potentially a little slow for that midfield, and all of the teams are sort of going the Richmond, the Collingwood, just get the ball forward at all costs. And the accumulator types like Jack McRae and the Tom Mitchells and these guys will potentially get affected by that. But I think that if you told me 12 months ago I could pick up Jack McRae for a price at 115, I would have jumped at that choice. He doesn't have an injury history. We know what he's like. He's been a permanent captain option in the past. If he goes less than 115 this year, I'll be thoroughly surprised. If there's no points of value in Jack McRae right now, I will be incredibly surprised. Bont for the same reason. The thing that's attracted me to Bont is the lack of Dunkley. Yes, Bailey Smith is going to pretty much just sub straight in and get most of the mid rotations that Dunks did have. But when Dunks hasn't been there, Bontempelli's averaged something in the last 2 seasons. He's gone from like a 115 with Dunkley to a 125 without Dunkley, I think the numbers are. So I'm predicting another jump this year. Again, more mid rotations. He's got that history with those games without Dunks where he goes up. So it's not like Dunkley's going to come back from injury like it's been in the past and when we've seen him regress. And we know he gets points for jumping through the barrier. So that's one as well. Another one where I'm looking for value, Captain Steele. He's owned by 1/5 of the competition, 20% right now, but there's a little bit of between the big coaches or the more seasoned coaches about whether he actually has true value there. Yes, he's priced at 110. He went at 120 odd the year before. The thing for me was he was carrying a few niggles last year, and the thing that he wasn't tackling. And when he's not tackling and he's breaking all these tackling records in seasons previous, he doesn't necessarily need to get 5 more touches to get that score to jump. Once he recovered from that shoulder, he was getting his arms around players again. He was putting more pressure on the ball. I think there is the chance that he pushes back up to at least a 115 mark. I'm seeing definitely some value in terms of Jack Steele. Maybe not as much as some other players because he is priced above the 600k mark. But we've seen some talk about Josh Kelly there at 580. Now the Giants have such a good run to start the season. They don't have Taranto and they don't have Hopper. Is it going to be finally the year that Josh Kelly doesn't burn us and actually becomes a mid? I'm not game enough to take that chance. I'm going to let you take that chance and you let me know how it goes. That was directed at Pistol, just so everyone knows that. Speaking directly to Pistol there. M4, we've got my first breakout player. And I say breakout because he's going at 100, which he's already broken out, but I think this is the year where he potentially goes to 110, 115. The back end of last year for Luke Davies-Uniacke was absolutely incredible. We saw that he's going to be the number one cog in that midfield. It's not like, let's say you're looking for a Noah Anderson from the Suns. He's got Took, he's got Rowell, he's got these other guys ahead of him. LDU is now the number one cog in that North midfield. He is not going to get forced out by anyone. He is someone that I'm willing to take on at that price. And again, we're looking for value. So previously we might have gone 4 big midfielders, your Laird, your Tooks, these kind of guys, and then filled it with rookies. I'm not sure we're going to have that chance to do that this year, particularly with the sub rule. A lot of these rookies that we're going to stuff into our side are just going to get cut to size with a green vest or a red vest out of nowhere, even if they're having a good game. So even with these kind of guys, I'm looking for some value in terms of that. And for that exact reason, again, another not surprising pick. I'm gonna back to back LDU and Tom Green as the 2 breakout midfielders this year, both priced relatively the same in the mid 500s. I think they can both go 110 to 115 this year. It's not super common that you're getting on 100 average that suddenly becomes a 115. I think that's incredibly important to talk about, that these guys typically have that breakout year. You go, they're going to be the next 120, and then they go to 108, 109, and then the next year, 113, and then they're the 120. So there's definitely the potential there that this will happen. But I like the fact that they've both now going to be inside mids for their team. They've got that exposed form. We saw what Tom Green did at the start of 2022 when Pistol jumped on him and kept him secret in his team. I think with the exodus of their big midfielders, he's going to be thrust in there because there's basically nothing else that he can do in terms of that side. He's not a half forward. He's an inside mid. He's a Hopper replacement essentially. So, speaking of Hopper, M6. Not much to say. He's 330k. He's going to be straight into the Richmond midfield. It's probably important to remember that Richmond midfielders don't go 110. They don't go 105. Hopper has been a 70% CBA mid at the Giants, who are a possession team, not a rush the ball forward team like the Tigers will be. I think it's unrealistic for me to sit here and say, or anyone to think that Hopper's going to be 105, 110 midfielder. I don't think he is. He's got that history of only going around the 3-figure mark. Maybe being at the Tigers, that's even come down into double figures, maybe the high 90s, mid 90s. I think that's just something important to be conscious of, or cognizant of, I should say. And then this is where we get into the high-priced rookies. Ashcroft is obviously going to be in there. I had a question in Slack. Are we worried about Ashcroft's scoring potential? No. If he's playing, he has all the attributes of someone that can do what Nick Dacos did last year. I'm not saying he's going to be the Nick Dacos of 2023, but he has those similar attributes, those skillful, ball-winning, pedigree, those kind of things. I think Will Ashcroft is going to be great. And then to finish off those on field, we're hoping, if I can spell, Will Phillips going to be getting some game time at North. Again, highly owned for a specific reason. It's because he's a high pedigree, high draft pick from a few years ago. I think it was 2021, in the 2020 draft. So coming into his 3rd season, he's had some injury niggles. I'm trying to think, it was glandular fever, I want to say, and then a few other injury niggles and stuff like that. So if he's going to be playing, his scoring potential is going to be great. I think he's had more time to develop, and from everything on the track has just been fantastic as well. So for the time being, he's going to be at M8 because we can be reasonably confident that these guys are going to be playing week in, week out. First, straight on the bench, you'll notice I'm doing it again. Philippou, high-priced, locks in some of that flexibility on the bench, but also he has incredible scoring potential that if he plays for the Saints, even if he's playing like a small forward role, he has the potential to score 50s and 60s off very, very little game time. And he's the type of player that is so mercurial that you don't kind of sub these guys that don't have that X factor. So I think that there's the potential that he's going to be getting game time if he's playing as opposed to being a sub. Then again, what do I know? The next one is Matty Johnson from Freo. I'm really hoping he gets a wing role for Freo. I don't think he will. Blake Acres has gone from that wing for Freo. I don't think he's going to get it, but there's the potential that he might do. Again, another guy that's had some pre-seasons, building up the legs,
bargain basement of someone that is not freshly drafted. I think there is the potential that he's going to be getting some game time, but I'm no more than a 50-50 on that. And then obviously, type my own name in there, Campbell Chesser. He's got the defence mid DPP. He's almost basement price. He is coming back from injury, but from the reports that we've had in the last couple of days, he's been cutting it up in the match sims, and he just returned to the main training group today. So that's really, really good news. Is he a chance for round one? Maybe. But at M11, he's got some potential to be getting some games. He's going to be, he's another high draft pick that they've had. They've been really easy on him, making sure that they don't overwork him because he has had that injury history. So maybe he's not early for the start of the year, but at M11, that's going to be fine. He's got that DPP swing that we can use with both Goda and Jinbi, and that's something that I find extremely helpful based on previous years. As we jump into the ruck line, this is the one that everyone is having a little bit of difficulty with because there's no clear picks this year. Everyone's banging in Rowan Marshall, but I'm starting with Tim English because I think Tim English, he's had another niggle at training today. Oh my God. I'm not 100%. I'm not coming out and saying he's going to play 20 games or 22 games. I don't think Tim English is that type, but he is the type that can come out and average 130 for the first month of the year. I suppose there's a couple of players that could do that. Sean Darcy from 2021, come back, please, I miss you. But yeah, Tim English is one of those guys that does have that potential. We saw what he did last year. He's clear number one ruck now. We've got Rory Lobb, but we all know how much he loves rucking. And he is just going to be a workhorse, Dean Cox-like, running around. And he's had 7 years in the system now as well. So he's ready to peak as a ruckman. Mid-20s is when they start, hitting their straps. I think Gawn's on the downturn. Witts is on the downturn. I really like the value of Brodie Grundy. You can see that in a very, very poor year, he averaged 103.5. And you can pick him up. What's that priced at? 92.5? You've already got 11 points of value if he just did what he did last year when he was playing with Cox and Darcy Cameron and things like that. So there's already 10 points of value in there. We know what Grundy can do. We know that he has that pedigree of being a top two ruck for eons past of set and forget. So he is one that I'm extremely interested in, and especially if Max Gawn continues to have hamstring issues in the preseason. Everything looks like he's going to be fine for round one, and we don't know how they're going to use those, whether one's going to play more forward and Max is going to do his usual across half-back taken contested marks. That, maybe they're going to do that. We're not 100% sure, but I'm extremely interested in Grundy, and it's just a benefit that he's so lowly owned that people are sticking away from him. They've got recency bias of him having such a poor back end of 2022 that no one's really want to go near him. The flavour of the month is Rowan Marshall. Again, he has been, his scoring potential without Paddy Ryder has been off the charts, but also as his amount of games missed through injury. So Rowan Marshall comes with inherent risk because of that. But again, you're picking someone up at 92 that has the potential to go 115. There's obvious value there. It makes a lot of sense. We're going to put Rowan Marshall in at the moment. And then, I'm trying to think, I think it's Madden. Ruck forward, cheapest price, GWS, R3. That looks good to me. No need to obviously just a loophole. Gives you the potential to pick someone like a Darcy Cameron in the forward line if you wanted to. Or if you want to start him in the rucks and use him as a swing as the year goes on. We move into the forward line. Obviously, Dunkley, he is going to go from, say, I think it was 45 to 50% CBAs at the Dogs. He's going to jump again. He's going to be in the 60s. He's probably going to be, high 60s in terms of CBAs. It's going to be him, Neil. Who would be the third person? They're going to be throwing Cam Rayner through there. They're going to have McCluggage running through there. But it is absolutely essential that they have someone like Josh Dunkley going through the midfield for the Lions. He's going to be a cog. We know exactly what he does when he's a full-time CBA midfielder. And You know, he has the potential of a 115, 120 season in. This is a really easy selection for me. For people that are second go, is it, you know, we're not looking for the top price, we're looking for value. I still see value in Josh Dunkley. He won't be a mid-forward at the end of 2023, I can assure you that. Someone that's in the exact same boat is Canelio. Canelio, if he can do what he did at the back end of last year, once Leon Cameron went out the back door, he's got value as well. 101, I think he went at something like 111 in the back end of the year once he got that mid time again, and he was running through there. They don't, obviously, same reason I'm looking at Tom Green, people are looking at Kelly, is that Canelio has already done it. We know, like, if he has the same role as last year, he's value. Or towards the back end of last year, again, he's going to be value. He's going to be in the top handful of picks that are going to be, you know, there's not much more I can say about Canelio. And this is where the kind of discussion comes. Zach Butters, Connor Rozee. I really, really like these two, and JB is going to kick me for not having either of them, because at F3, Timmy Taranto. I think he's got a little bit of value. I don't see Taranto going massively over 100 plus. I think he's got 5 to 10 points of value at least, now that he's going to be a full-time CBA mid. He's not going to be... people have discussed whether he's going to be swapping with Dusty. Dusty's going to be playing a lot more time forward this year, particularly as his age is getting on. Same with Cochin. They're moving out of the midfield to kind of let these guys in. I think Taranto is going to be a full-time midfield for the Tigers this year. Again, we talk, Tigers don't typically have high, over 100-plus scoring midfielders just because of the game style, but he's definitely got some value there. Connor Rozee, yes, he could be one of those players that go 105, 110 this year, and JB reckons he's going to go 150. The problem with Rozee and Butters, like we've seen over the last 2 years, they have that ceiling, but they've also got that floor. And the floor is their floor, is that I don't like the idea of getting a 150 one week and a 50 another week, and that's how I end up with my 100 average for the year. It's going to win me some weeks, it's going to cost me in others. I would rather have a reliability and role, and Taranto, depending on how he wants to shank his kicks, is a little bit the same way. But I'm sticking away from the Port boys at this point in time, and they're going to be the guys that if I've picked, you know, Canelio or Taranto, don't have that uptick in value that I thought they had. It's a really easy switch to pick up a Butters or a Rozee, and I probably rank Rozee above Butters at this point in time, just because he's that little bit underpriced. And Butters spent the majority of the year in the midfield last year, and then ended up with those niggles running across. He just goes too hard at the ball that he decapitates himself, and they can never leave him as a full-time CBA mid. I think he's destined to forever be this guy that will spend 2 months in the midfield, get a little niggle, and then back across half forward, rotating through, and it hurts his scoring potential. We've got another TT at F4, Taron Thomas. It's a strange one. He's got all the right attributes to be a really good scoring Supercoach player, but we just haven't seen him take it to the level that I probably think he should have at this point. He's getting some time through the mids, a lot of half back in this preseason as well. He's a little bit undervalued. This is probably the point in my team that I'm a little bit skeptical with. It could be really easy to throw someone like Fife or a Sam Flanders in here. They're all kind of vying for this position. I think Thomas at this point in time, just because I think Fife is going to spend a considerable amount of time in the forward line, he's probably still going to score great, but, you know, he probably played 20 games and averaged 95, and people will be really happy picking him. But he could also play 10 games, get injured, get concussed, and score nothing because he's playing deep forward, and he's got... Yeah. A lot like Jelly. I've learnt my lesson. Someone else take that risk and tell me how it went. At F... What are we up to? F5. Toby. Came back at the end of the year. Another highly owned player. Interestingly, he's been training with the Bs. He's not been training with the A squad, which has got to be classic Bevo, doesn't it? He came back at the end of last year. I think it was in the finals or something like that, and he looked great. He came back from that ACL, back from injury, looked like he slotted straight back in. You lose Dunkley as well. You lose a few bits and pieces. Surely he comes back into the side, even if he's playing across half forward or something like that. Surely he should still be getting a run. And again, one of these players that have years in the system. They're slightly elevated over a rookie price, but you're picking up someone like a Philippou. Say you're looking for someone like that in the forward line for 12k difference for someone that's been in the system for 5, 6, 7, 8 years, however long he's been in there. Coming back from injury has it seems like a really simple selection for me of someone that's probably going to get game time. Less of a sub risk, I'd say, but you never know with Bevo. Anything could happen. And along the same lines, you could have Bruce in here. Bruce has been training with the A squad in defence, which is where he played his junior footy from memory. So he's got that about him. He should be able to transition to that, because obviously what are they going to do with Lob coming in? They can't be too tall in that forward line. And so does Bruce go down back? If he does play back and he's playing in the squad, he's going to be a nice pick. That I think he's 160 or something. Let's look him up. 161. Yeah, but this stage, we've got Benny King. He's going to come in at F6. Again, slightly elevated, been in the system, going to be playing games, not a sub-risk. Playing for the Suns, what's he realistically going to average? Your guess is as good as mine. It's not going to be great, but he is going to get some cash. And he's going to be playing games, and he's going to be avoiding those donate for donuts for me. To finish off my forward bench, we've got Joshy Sin. Mid-forward DPP, bargain basement price. Again, another player that has been said to be getting some time across the wing for Port this year. He's got good disposal. He has had the potential to kind of be one of those young kids that break out and get that game time. I think he's going to be fringe best 22. JB seems confident on him, so I will defer to his judgment on this one, but I think Joshy Sin's going to be a good selection. And depending on how he goes in preseason and how confident we are that he's going to be in the starting 22, he could even be an F6 sort of spot. And I know I've said I'm not looking at putting a bargain basement sub-risk at F6 or on the field at any point, but he's probably one of the forwards or one of the rookies that I'm a little bit more comfortable in based on the word that we've had this preseason. And to finish off my team, if I can spell, Owen Davey Jr. I think his X factor is going to be fantastic for the Bombers. Bombers were really lucky to get him where we did in the preseason. He's got that DPP into the mids as well, so that's going to be really good for switching him forward and back. I think there's particularly with the Bombers' injuries right now, he's a really good chance to be starting the year. He is less of a small forward than, say, his dad was or his brother Jaden is. More of a half forward, really, sort of like this is a bad comparison, but like Brad Hill as a runner, but off the forward flank as opposed to off the back flank that Brad Hill kind of has made himself into in the last couple of years. He's got that kind of running power, really good kicking inside 50, so that's why I think they would like to play him across the half-forward line. If he's delivering inside 50 as he gets a few games under his belt, I think the Bombers going to be super, super happy. So that's my team. Let's hit save. CHEEZO'S Champs GRSC version 2000 January 2023. A little bit of cash in the bank to do some flexibility. I've got some cash there and thereabouts that I can move around and do some things with. And we'll go from there. I'm pretty happy with that side.
Question of the day. What did I do wrong with my side? Let me know in the comments which player I missed out on, what's wrong with my team, what you would change, and which player I missed. Throw them down in the comments. As always, you can find us at drsupercoach.com.au, patreon.com/drsupercoach. You can find us on the socials, Facebook, Twitter, all that jazz. Until then, everyone, will see you in the next episode. Get out of here.